Good morning, Superboy Beyond fans. Welcome back. We're going to do another one of our patented commentaries. This time we are doing one of the last of these season 1 episodes that we're going to do, which
I think this is the last. Like last week, I know that we said that was the last season 1 episode we do for a while, but obviously we were mistaken. There's still this one to go, but
yes,
I think this is the last one we're going to do for a little while.
Yeah, and this is probably one of the best of season 1. This is, drum roll please, meet Mr. Mxyzptlk.
I come from afar to make you a star.
This is when the show really, in my opinion, did start to take on the more comic book flair. I mean, yeah, we have the Alien episodes and we had Kryptonite, but this is really when it kind of became more of a comic book show, at least to me.
I agree with you there, and I think the big distinction with this episode is that before this, I think the only Superman villains we'd ever seen in live action were Lex Luthor and Zod and Co. That's basically it, because Superman 3 didn't really have any comic book villains. It was a brand new guy invented for the movie. And like Ross Webster was his name? Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know why I remember his name, because it's not a good movie. I like Robert Vaughn though, actually. So to be fair, Robert Vaughn is always fun no matter what he's in.
Yeah, and you can look at the character that he's playing as kind of like the prototype for what they did with Lex when they did the revamp in 86.
Yeah, and it's funny because obviously that movie must have come out first. I do wonder if the comic, like if John Byrne or whoever's decision it was to do that, I assume it was Byrne. Like, I wonder if they did get a little bit of inspiration from Superman 3. I know we're going a little bit off topic, but obviously it's relevant to Mxyzptlk because obviously Superman 4, then it was another invented villain with Nuclear Man. I mean, I guess you could argue he's kind of a twist on Bizarro in some ways, but not really, And that's basically it until Mxyzptlk comes along. We'd had Lex Luthor in the show, but we'd seen him before plenty of times, even back in the old series, in like one of the Kirk Allen serials. Didn't you say Luthor, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it's one of the stuff, it's one of the things I've not seen, but
we'll have to do a watch on that one day, although we might need 15 hours to do it.
Something I'd like to do first, though, I really, really love Superman and the Mole Men, and it's been a very long time since I've seen it, so maybe we'll do a commentary on that at some point soon.
You should bring Lou back for that.
Yes, definitely bring Lou in for that one. That would be good, actually. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, as we were saying, this is definitely the first step into a more comic booky world for Superboy. Whether this is one of the best episodes of season 1, I know is a bit debatable because this episode does have its detractors, people that don't like it so much. But I think most of the time it's just people that aren't wildly keen on Michael J. Pollard's performance. I always liked Michael J. Pollard's performance. He sort of reminds me of a slightly bored game show host. And I don't know, I just think it kind of works for Mixie. I don't know why. I would never have thought to put a personality like that on Mxyzptlk unless I'd seen this show. But yeah, should we get straight into it?
Yep. So we're not going to have any clips of the episode in our podcast here. We're just going to have a very, very, very filtered version up there, so you can keep in track with us. This is not a typical reaction video, so just get ready for us to hit the play. And I'm going to count you in with a 3, 2, 1, and we'll do it as a 3, 2, 1 kill Tipsyism in honor of Mixie.
I can't pronounce that, but you go ahead. I never could pronounce that. Kill Tipsyism? So I get it right.
That's how they
the first.
pronounce it in the show.
Well,
But
I'll
it's
pronounce it that way. You pronounce it the right way.
all right. So 3, 2, 1. Kill
Bill
Tipsyson.
Dixon. It's been too long since I've seen this episode, and it's funny. I do get why some people aren't keen on Michael J. Pollard. I did see a video on YouTube recently, and someone said that, in their opinion, he looks like he's playing it drunk the entire time, like he just
I saw
showed
the
up on
same
set.
guy.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily agree with that because that's kind of his style, I guess. Like, Michael J. Pollard, you don't hire him unless you want him to be Michael J. Pollard to a
Yeah.
certain extent. Like, he has range, but he's, I guess it's a bit like, certain big name actors. They may play a lot of different characters, but they're all twists on themselves at the end of the day, How many characters has Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise really played?
Yeah.
Basically always the same. Outside of a couple of movies, obviously.
And I like how they have this totem pole on here.
I was just going to say, it looks like it's actually made out of real wood. So I wonder who on the production staff actually was tasked with carving that thing, because obviously it's not an actual artifact, because that would be horrible if they were doing this to it. I do wonder if it still exists, though. It's the kind of thing that I can imagine just getting dumped somewhere because it's, biodegradable. It will just disappear with time. Although the way it's wobbling now makes me wonder if it is just made of styrofoam.
Yeah. Hopefully, it's sitting in like a back room of the Superman Museum somewhere.
That would be nice. If anybody from the Superman Museum happens to watch our videos, I doubt it, but if you have that thing, let us know. Maybe take a photo of it for us. We'd love that. Because let's face it, a lot of the time we just appreciate knowing the stuff still exists.
Yeah. I have to say, John's landing just now was very, very well executed.
Yeah, that's one thing you can say about both John and Gerard. They were very good with the wire work. Okay, John had that sort of weird sort of kung fu arm thing going on when he was landing and taking off, which I wasn't wildly keen on. But like, he held his body in the right way, because I know you've got to try and it takes a lot of core strength, I'm told. So clearly, they trained well enough to do that. But yeah, no, you're right. It's a very good landing. But yeah, I'm guessing it is just styrofoam or plastic coated or something. I don't know. Either that or they had it hooked up to a crane so they could lift it.
Yeah.
I just love how pleased with himself Michael J. Pollard plays the character as well. Like, he's always, every time he makes like a really crap joke, he just has this look on his face like he's so pleased with himself.
He's almost got an Urkel feel to him with the way the belt is hiked up.
A little bit.
I think the shirt skirt is a little too long, though.
Maybe a little bit. It may still be the most accurate on-screen Mxy that we've ever had outside of animation, but let's face it, not everything is perfect. And like I say, there's people that don't like his performance particularly, but I don't know, it's always worked for me. The guy playing the professor there, was he in any more episodes? Because
I think this was his only appearance.
no, I was just thinking he does a decent job. Like if he's not in the show again, it's kind of a shame. You know me. Anytime I see an actor like deliver technobabble well, I appreciate it because I know how incredibly difficult it is to just speak nonsense words, essentially.
I'd still like to know how they're doing that whole thing of him floating in the air like that.
I'm guessing they just sat him on a green box. I used to work at the London Eye, you know, the big wheel in London, selling souvenir photos, and we had a photo area that was literally just a big green crate in front of a green screen, and we'd have people sit there, and it would replace the chair and all that stuff in post. I guess with this, all you'd have to do is just not insert the chair. It's probably literally as simple as a green crate on the roof.
And,
Or he's just shot entirely on green screen.
Yeah. One thing we didn't mention is that this episode is written by comic veteran Denny O'Neil.
Yes. Not his only episode for this. He also wrote Mr. and Mrs. Superboy as well, I believe.
Yes.
Did he write any more? Or was it just those two?
I think it was just those two.
What a shame. Yeah, I know Denny O'Neil has spoken about Superboy in interviews. He wasn't particularly kind about the show, though, I will just say. Yeah, he wasn't particularly happy with how his scripts were put on screen, but oh well. It's a low budget show, you know, you can't have everything, I guess. I certainly know that a lot of the other comic book writers that worked on Superboy are a lot kinder about the show. I know Mike Carlin still talks about it fondly, and
well, you got to remember something about Denny O'Neil. Denny O'Neil is more of a Batman writer than a Superman writer.
yeah, I mean, he's a legend, you know. Maybe it's just, I don't think he did a bad job with the scripts. I think his problem was that he's just, what he pictures when he was writing it was just a little bit better than what ended up on screen, which I guess is just something that all writers have to deal with in television, just by the nature of how quickly it has to be shot and how cheaply it needs to be made. And here's the creepy teacher.
Yeah, the running gag that went a little too far.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I get the joke with it. It's supposed to be funny that there's this older teacher that has the hots for Superboy and or Clark as well, and just he's not interested. Like, it's a funny gag, maybe once, you know. But if you keep doing it,
twice at the maximum, but not 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. Maybe 3 at the maximum, because they say with comedy, you know, the third time is almost as funny as the first because it's the rule of threes or something. But
yeah,
unfortunately, it just comes across as kind of creepy because, I mean, let's face it, if it was Supergirl and it was her older male teacher, it would be, yeah, not something you'd really want on television. I mean, it doesn't ruin the episode or anything, but it's just... And the fact that that was a recurring joke makes me even wonder if Denny O'Neil even wrote that scene, or at least that teacher. Maybe that was something that was added, I don't know, by producers or something. I know that while one writer may be credited on something, I know that rewrites happen without them all the time.
You can almost see, you know, on Stacy's face that she's stifling laughter. because she's said in multiple interviews that she couldn't keep a straight face when she was dealing with him.
Yeah, I think I saw her say in an interview just what a sweet man he was, and just yeah, she liked him. Then I've never heard anyone on the cast say anything bad about Michael J. Pollard, and the fact that he got him back for a second episode clearly proves that the makers of the show were liking what he was doing. I've always liked that moment where the prisoners appear. Yeah. I just love how they don't question anything. It's just like, we've got guns. This is brilliant.
Well, think about it. If you were a prisoner in jail, and then all of a sudden you found yourself outside of jail, and then guns
With
were in
guns.
your hand, I don't think you would question it either.
No. You just be like, yeah, don't question, what is it? Don't question your blessings or something. There's some phrase that's
Don't count your blessings. Also, don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And one of those guys actually shows up in season 2.
Oh, which episode?
Johnny Casanova.
Huh.
He's one of the thugs. He's one of the thugs. He's the one that says, "Yeah, I don't really want to kill him. I want to smoke cigars with him and play cards."
Guy. That's cool. I always like when they bring back actors. Now, now we've reached the part in the episode that's my favourite part, just seeing John act as Mxy. I just think he does a really good job. I do find it hilarious that Mixie's swimsuit is the same colour scheme as his clothes, and it's just wildly outdated as well. Like, he's wearing like a 1950s men's swimsuit.
Yeah.
I don't think in the 80s any men were wearing that. Then again, I guess it would be weird if he was walking around in a Speedo or something, so maybe this is for the best.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone wants to see that. I don't know, actually, maybe Stacey would have wanted to see that. Since they were dating at the time.
Yeah. And what has she said now in interviews? Don't date your co-stars.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's never a good idea. Although, some actors seem to make it work. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone seem to make it work for quite some time.
Yeah.
Even now they're split up, they still talk about each other fondly. Every now and then I'll see, they'll being in an interview and one of them will mention the other, even though they've not been together for quite some time. Like, it's kind of nice. I will say one thing. I don't know what exactly about how Clark is acting is actually winning Lana over exactly. Because he's not being smooth or charming. He's acting like Mixie. He's acting Urkelish.
He's acting like a 7-year-old.
Yeah, so why is Lana suddenly bewitched by him? It's never quite made sense for me, the way that John is acting, why that would work. Like, normal John Newton Clark is smoother than that guy.
But you remember, she did say, I don't know what it is about you. You're acting so different now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just the fact that, that he's going for her in a way. But the way he's going about it just seems really odd.
Mm.
Never understood why he came in as Superboy, though, for that scene, when he could have easily just walked in as Clark. I guess he's trying to hide his secret identity still, but I don't see what difference it would make, really.
Yeah.
You've left out some crucial information there, though, Soupy.
Yeah, well, he can't exactly tell everything here.
Yeah, but he says, he's hitting on her, and I don't think she minds. Like, if he just threw in the added information, oh, and by the way, he's also shapeshifted to look exactly like Clark, and she thinks Clark is the one that's flirting. That he doesn't have to explain that he is Clark. He can just say that, I happen to know that Clark is out of town right now, and yet he's right there. It's Mixie. I don't know. I'm picking holes now, or poking holes rather.
Well, there are some holes in the script, and despite how great of a script writer Denny O'Neil was, he is only human, and he made some mistakes here.
Yeah. And let's face it, Denny O'Neil is one of those writers that is absolutely fantastic at writing comic books. I don't know if he's necessarily the best screenwriter. It's a very different format, so maybe that's what tripped him up a little bit. Maybe he's also used to having an artist that's able to take minimal scene descriptions and turn them into gold. Because let's face it, the best artists in comics do exactly that. I know during the New 52, when Scott Snyder was working on Detective Comics or Batman, I forget which one he was doing, but he was saying that the artist that he was working with, whose name I'm forgetting for the moment, but he said he doesn't include almost any descriptions of what's going on in the scene because the artist is so good at what he does. That's his job. He takes the words and puts the visuals to them. So maybe Denny O'Neil is, part of the same school of writing. Who knows? Bit of a ramble, but there you go.
Yep.
I do think Michael J. Pollard is good. I'm sorry. I maybe at the beginning he's playing it like a bored, maybe slightly tipsy, like game show host, but as the episode goes on, I just don't know. He feels like he slips into the role a little bit more.
Yeah, and especially that moment, just now when he put the hex on Lana and made her fall in love with him. That
slightly sinister.
Yeah, that sinister smile he has on his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that belt is way too high on the shirt.
I wonder if the belt was sewn on to the top or if it was something that when he got into costume, he decided he wanted to wear the belt higher. I would be interested if that costume still exists to know whether that belt is actually attached or if it's something that has to be added, like worn after kind of thing.
Yep.
Because at least then we'd know if it was a costume designer's decision or if it was something that potentially Michael Pollard chose for the character for whatever reason.
Yeah, it could have been a situation like with Julie Newmar as Catwoman, because I know for a fact in her case she did have the belt worn lower to accentuate her hips.
Which, let's face it, Catwoman is one of those characters that totally works for.
Yeah.
She's supposed to be slinky like a cat. She can slip in and out of places, and it's just she's also supposed to be very attractive because Batman's got to fall in love with her a lot. It doesn't always work out, but some continuities they end up married. There was a weird buzzing on my screen just then.
Yeah, I heard it. Yep.
Huh. I wonder if that's on both our DVDs then. Because I'm wearing headphones, you shouldn't have been able to hear it. Hmm. Yeah, I like it that even after he's been tricked and he's a little bit mad about it, he's still got a grin on his face. Like, this is brilliant. You've tricked me. I'll see you next month.
In 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months, you know. And scenes like this as well, I just think they really didn't have to go overboard with Clark Kent stuff in season 2. They could have easily just had Clark be played like this. It would have worked fine. Just every now and then have him drop something. Just make him a little bit clumsy. That's all it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems, with the season 2 stuff, that he went a little too far.
And I do think that's probably a producer note. Season 1 wasn't as popular as they hoped it would be. Maybe they figured that if Clark Kent was a little bit closer to the Christopher Reeve version, perhaps audiences would connect with it a bit more. But they just took it way overboard. I guess it's the difference between Clark Kent written by Richard Donner and co. I forget what the guy's name who was only credited Mankiewicz, and like he was only creative consultant technically, but he basically wrote the thing.
Yeah,
It's the difference between
he wrote it.
Yeah, like Mario Puzo wrote the first draft basically. Everything else was, with other people. But it's the difference between Clark Kent written for Superman 1 and 2 versus Superman 3 and 4. Although Superman 3 wasn't bad in terms of the Clark Kent stuff. Like, who doesn't love the whole Smallville subplot with Lana and all of that,
Well, remember, in Superman 3, he could be closer to the real Clark because he's going home.
Yeah. He grew up with Lana. If he was to go over the top with some of this, she'd probably be like, wow, you've changed.
Yeah.
And maybe she would start to think there's something not quite right going on here. Oh, look at that big photo that's on the wall of the school gym that very clearly looks like Superman because he's not wearing glasses. Maybe that would be the thing that makes someone notice.
Yep.
Although that always just annoyed me in Superman the movie. I wish they could have hired an artist to paint glasses on the old photo or something. But I guess we had Superman the movie and he didn't wear glasses. They should have just had what's his name do it. They should have just had his photo on the wall in the school.
Yeah, Jeff East.
Yeah, put Jeff East's photo up there on the wall. That would have been so much better. Continuity wise, and you didn't have to explain why nobody's recognising. Hang on a minute. I've seen Superman's photo on the front page of the Daily Planet countless times. That's Superman. And suddenly people are like, wait, Clark used to do some really... Remember that time that we were going to play some records and Clark showed up outside his farm and he said that he ran? That was weird. Clark is Superman, I'm really going off on a weird tangent now, but there you go.
There's some plot holes because of the set decoration and stuff.
And I guess Clark wasn't super nerdy in Superman 4. I don't know. Maybe it was just they figured television, everything had to be slightly more choreographed, They had to really spell it out for the audience. Especially back then, television, especially with the smaller screens and stuff, maybe they figured that the performances had to be bigger. I don't know.
Plus, Christopher Reeve was basically doing almost an impression of Cary Grant from, I think it was Bringing Up Baby.
Never seen it, but I'll take your word for that one.
Yeah. I think that's what he said in interviews, that it was Bringing Up Baby with Cary Grant, that he was he was basically doing the same character.
Right. Maybe they asked Gerard to watch Cary Grant as well, and maybe their just interpretations of how to do that was slightly different, Maybe it's the difference between just a Juilliard trained actor, and I don't know where Gerard Christopher like trained to act. I know that he started off initially as a model, so I assume he did have acting lessons at some point because he pretty much would have had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's the difference. Juilliard is just, it's known as one of the greatest acting schools in the world.
Yeah, and of course, at this time, this is around the time when Family Matters was becoming big. So
Maybe they figured they'd inject just a little bit of that sitcom Urkel energy into it. Maybe that would bring in some extra audience, but
it,
who knows?
and it,
Going a little bit off track here, I just think what John Newton was doing in the final scene is enough. He's clumsy, but he's not over the top like Urkel Clark. It's funny seeing John playing Mxyzptlk in disguise. It's very close to what Gerard was doing as Clark in season 2. Their mannerisms are almost similar in ways. It's really quite a strange episode because of that.
yeah,
I do think he did a good job because obviously he's supposed to be playing Mixie. If he played Clark that way the entire time, I don't think I would have quite as high opinion of John's performance as I do.
yeah.
But yeah, that was Mr. Mxyzptlk. Is there anything more on this episode you'd like to say, or should we just get straight into ranking the episode?
The only thing that I would say is, you pointed out the actor who was playing Professor Royer did a great job. He really should have come back because they did have other archaeological stuff that they could have done.
I mean, he only had a very small bit of technobabble to spout off, but that is a really difficult skill to learn as an actor because it's basically, they say that even the best actor in the world can't make the clunkiest dialogue work. And technobabble, since it's basically just a load of nonsense most of the time, that has got to be like taking that skill of turning clunky dialogue into something passable and just turning it up to 11. It's got to be so difficult. Just even trying to just get the timing of the sentence right, just trying to structure the sentence vocally has got to be quite tough because if you're not a sci-fi fan, if you don't know those words inherently anyway, it's got to be kind of tough just to even know where to put the pauses. So the fact that he did that straight off, I think is very good because let's face it, I have pointed out in previous episodes, like in Super Menace with the General at the very beginning, he didn't do a terrible job, but he had a little bit of technobabble type dialogue to do, and I didn't feel that like it came off quite so naturally. So yeah, when I see someone doing it well, I give props.
Yep.
It's a shame he didn't come back, as you say. How many other archaeological type things could they have done? It's always an interesting place to go with a story. Especially with comic books.
And people, in interviews, Gerard has said that he didn't watch any of John's stuff because he was told, "Oh, he sucks." Well, this is proof positive right here of how good of an actor he really is, because he can go from playing straight-laced Superboy to kind of clumsy Clark to Mixie as Clark.
Yeah, and it works, and even just the slightly shy nature when he's playing Mixie, because he's doing an imitation of Michael J. Pollard. It kind of works for me, He's not playing it 1-to-1. I wouldn't say that it's like Michael J. Pollard is inhabiting John Newton for that scene or anything, but it's close enough that you can feel what they're doing. You can feel that it's the character that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And
I
just think that's really cool.
He is playing Mixie trying to play Clark. And that shows how great of an actor he really is. And, people don't give him all that much credit. This is proof positive how good of an actor he really was.
Yeah, it's one of the best episodes for that. And it's funny, actually, talking about the way he's playing Mixie almost slightly shy. It does remind me of that scene in Bringing Down the House when he's singing a little bit on stage and realizes that Lana and was it Lana and TJ or was it Lana and one of her friends? I forget. But he gets all embarrassed that they've been listening to him sing, and it's just a really nice moment that feels like Clark Kent, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought he was very good in those moments, and it's a shame that John and Gerard don't get on, because how awesome would it have been to one day see them at a panel together or something? But I don't see that ever happening, to be honest. Yeah,
It's got to be a situation where Gerard has formed his opinion about him based upon hearsay.
yeah. I mean, I've heard rumors about why Gerard doesn't like John. I don't know how true they are, so I'm not going to repeat them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it kind of would make sense if it's true. But like I say, I don't know how true it is. It's just a rumor that I've heard.
Yeah, and then both of them eventually did appear on Beverly Hills 90210 later
Not in
on.
the same episode, though.
No.
Thankfully. That would have been a nightmare on set, I'm sure. Oh, we got to get rid of the guest stars. Oh, why? They're strangling each other.
Why are they strangling each other?
They're arguing about who was the better Superboy. I flew better. I was better at flying. No, I was. You did that weird kung fu shit, man. Nobody liked that. Fuck you.
I would say that Gerard was better at the flying. Because when you see him flying, his arms are outstretched. I particularly did not care for the whole kung fu
sort of.
Yeah. I mean, it's
like
it's
as he landed, he would always sort of do this, and it always just looked sort of strange. Like,
it's fine if he wanted to do a little bit of that when he's trying to bank and arc, but
that would work. That would be great.
But if he wants to fly straight, arms outstretched,
or maybe if there was a shot where he's flying at a villain and he's like getting ready to punch, like maybe that's like something he does and it helps him focus to move extra fast or something. They could have explained it away as flying like that serves a purpose of some kind. Maybe Kryptonian chakras or something. I don't know. But, you can make something up.
Yeah.
I will say this, though, for him. I do really appreciate the fact that he tried to put his own spin on the flying. He didn't just want to do what had been done before. He wanted to put his stamp on it. I don't think it worked, but I respect the choice,
Yeah.
But yeah, he was pretty good at flying in this episode. When he flies down to the totem pole at the beginning, like that is just a really good, solid landing, Yeah, I don't have much else to say on this episode. So, do you want to give it a ranking?
Yeah, on the season 1 scale, I would say this is about a 7 or a 7.5.
I was going to go 7.5 to an 8, just because season 1 doesn't have that many notable episodes, and this is definitely notable. And I do think it's a good episode that gets a bad rap from some people. I think that Michael J. Pollard's performance works for the type of Mxy that he's playing. He's playing a slightly seedier version, so playing him like a slightly seedy, bored game show host always worked for me. It just made sense.
He's also playing it a little bit like a 7-year-old.
That works too.
And looking at it, if you really want to look at it, the way he's playing it, it's basically to take you off guard. Because when he starts to do those kind of sinister things, like putting the hex on Lana, and then that sadistic smile that he's got on his face.
Yeah. Until that moment, you think he's a bit of a nuisance, but he's basically harmless. But the moment he does that, it's like, okay, actually, no, Mxy could be a legit threat. Obviously, comic book fans would already know that, but let's face it, television, they write as if this is everyone's first story.
Yeah,
that's why episodic television was so popular, because they wrote every episode so that if it was your first episode, you wouldn't be completely lost.
And then
I guess that approach works for villains as
Professor
well.
Royer, when he's talking about the mythology behind what was on the totem pole, he's saying they can be playful, but they can also be very vindictive.
I mean, that explains Mixie to a T.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit, and it does fit in with the whole that whole thing about any trickster from history, potentially any trickster from fiction, not even just DC. Like, there's always been that thing. Any trickster could be Mxyzptlk. There's people that think that the tricksters in real legends, potentially through comic book sci-fi-ness, you could argue that could be Mixie. Yeah, Bugs Bunny, I suppose, could be Mixie because he's definitely a trickster in his own way.
He's a trickster on the side of good.
But I mean, Mixie can do good occasionally. He's not always the bad guy in a story. Most of the time he is, let's face it, but not every time. Sometimes Mixie can be a slightly strange but untrustworthy ally, but an ally nonetheless.
Yeah.
It's rare, but yeah. Can't think much else really to say about this episode, but yeah, that video that we were talking about earlier, that was talking about Mxyzptlk, they put forward, maybe Q in Star Trek is Mxyzptlk, maybe there's all these different versions. Doctor Who just had the Celestial Toymaker return, and some people online are saying that could very easily just be another version of Mixie. And it really could. When you watch that episode, it feels like a Mxyzptlk story.
Yeah.
Which now makes me want to see Neil Patrick Harris play Mxyzptlk, I must admit. He would probably be very good, actually, as Mixie.
James Gunn, if you're watching us, we just gave
maybe
you...
for the sequel, Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's anyone out there that disagrees with that casting, go and watch that episode of Doctor Who. He is basically just Mxyzptlk with a different name. And it's great. Yeah, I may have disagreed with one of the things that video on tracing Mxyzptlk through all the different dimensions. I may have disagreed with one thing that he said, but that was actually a very good video that I enjoyed a great deal. So, yeah, do go and watch that video. I'll try to remember to include a link in the video description, just because I always like to do that if we've mentioned someone, even if there's no chance they'll even know we've done it. But there you go.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you all so much. 7.5 to an 8, so 7.75, I guess, if we split the difference. Yeah, good episode. Maybe next week we'll do Mr. and Mrs. Superboy, because I assume we've not done that one either, since we've not done this one. So we may as well just do that next week. So look out for that. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.